Are certain roles harder to find? We talked about operator. It doesn't make it easier job to do, but might be easier to find. What do you think?
It might be easier to find, but it's also the part where for any person on a founding team, they need to be into the startup mentality, right? What should you be ready for? What kind of commitment on the operator? That can often be that it can be easy to find, but does that person then have the right mindset? Do they have the right risk profile?
Hey everyone, this is Heini and Theis here, and welcome to Founders Weekly, where we tell stories we can learn from. Today, we're talking about founders and specifically the composition of a founding team. How do we build a great founding team? What does a great founding team need to have? We're going to test a system that evaluates the composition of a founding team. This should be pretty interesting. My co-host today is Theis Vivino co-founder and a friend. Welcome, Theis. Where are you? Are you at the library or where are you?
Yeah, I'm at the home library. Yeah, thanks, Heine. Good to be here. Always a pleasure.
Great to have you. I'm in Barcelona. So as you know, we have a house here. And I built this really fancy office on top of the house. And it turns out in 2024, you really want to have internet in your office. But that is not working yet. So we'll see where that takes us. I'm still in the living room recording. So we should be fine. Okay, let's get straight to today's subject, the founding team. An early stage startup is all about the founders, the founding team. So we want to talk about what a founding team, and especially what it needs to have, what a great founding team needs to have. So I've been wanting to, you know, Theis, I love to quantify everything, put numbers on everything, and I wanted to do some kind of system that could do a sanity check on a founding team. And I have done that. I did it some time ago. I've never shown it to anybody, which means that Theis has not seen this system before. Nobody's seen it before. And yeah, well, you could say this is like a world premiere. Are you excited about that, Theis?
I'm very excited about how bad it's going to be before you get my valuable input.
Shit, I'm really concerned. I said before we went on, Theis, you're a listener here now, and you should just give your honest opinions. Like, I do not know what the fuck you're talking. Pardon my French. What you're talking about? This is shit. And then when I said it, Theis, you should do that. I sort of regretted. Yeah, I should not have asked Theis to do that.
No, you know me, Heine. I will give you frank feedback.
Yeah, it's tough. But anyway, I built this system, and the objective here is to look at how strong the founding team. Where is it strong? Where is it weak? Are there potential gaps in the team? Because we know there are certain things that a founding team needs. And so let's start. The idea here is that we have certain roles that need to be filled, basically on any founding team. And I've taken that down to 4 types of founder roles. And it's not a specific person. These are just, you could say, 4 roles, 4 jobs that need to be done. And basically every startup needs that. So let's have a look at what that is. So first I'm going to read the 4 roles. We'll talk a little bit, and then we dig into it in detail. So the 4 roles are idea person, deal maker, builder, and operator. Okay, so just to have all the listeners with us and Theis too. So idea person, deal maker, builder, and operator. I probably shouldn't spend too much. While you think about that, Theis, the idea here is that any co-founder usually can't do more than 2 of these roles. Some people are only good at 1, but rarely can do 3 of them, and almost never all 4. It's just, you know, how personalities are. What do you think about that?
You're absolutely right that it's very hard for anyone to encompass. I think you've made these 4, and it's definitely hard to do 3 check boxes for any one person. You will be at least weak on some of them.
Yeah, at least relatively. Even if you think, oh, I can do most of them, but even there's going to be a stack ranking, right? That some are you going to be really good at, and then you should ask yourself too, and that's like, yeah, well, should you really be doing what you're naturally really not very good at? Maybe you should move your resource over to something else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's dig into the 4 roles here. And by the way, as we get further, we're also going to test this system with Theis and me. So actually test as co-founders of Vivino, what kind of scores would we get, and did we have clear gaps? I think we might know the answer to that, but let's see if the system actually works too in a real life test. Let's go with the first one. So, idea person. An idea person is a creative person full of ideas and resourcefulness who thinks outside the box, and there's no limit to what can be done, and especially how fast it can be done. Sometimes seen as the visionary leader, and this really is the stereotype of a crazy founder. So would you know anyone like that, Theis?
In this room, no, I don't know anyone like that, Heine. I think we're really lacking on that one. No, obviously, I think you're really strong on a lot of these fronts. Personally, I also think I'm very strong on some of these fronts, especially on the creative side. But obviously, this is a place where you've shown your mettle in this area for sure.
We'll see about the next, though. Thank you. But I also agree that, again, we'll get to the points, and we're going to get into the really almost like the small numbers on this, which is going to be interesting, and we might disagree on some of it, but it's going to be fun. The next person or role here is not that I wanted to start with me. I actually tried to do some kind of abbreviation that sounded good. I really did not succeed in that, but I still tried. But the next role here is the deal maker. A deal maker can close a deal. This means fundraising, business deals, whatever deals need to be done. The deal maker can sell, be a promoter, create excitement, tell a story, and also be a bit of a hustler. I mean, we might still be in my field here. What do you think, Theis?
I think we're definitely still in your field. Also, just looking at what you and we have achieved in the past years. But I would also say I think this is probably the area where, if anything, we as a founding team have some weaknesses. We've always, for example, struggled on the marketing and kind of buzz front, how to get the word out there. I don't necessarily think that either of us are very strong naturally on this front.
Not traditional salespeople, you could say, right?
Exactly, right. We are not the traditional salespeople. On that area, we can be a bit too cautious, or I think on the personality scores, we have very high on this kind of just thing where we want to do things right. Yeah. And so when it comes to that type of let's say hustle, I don't think we're weak, but I don't think this is where we are the strongest in the world.
I think maybe we started out weaker and then actually grew into it, got better at exaggerating a little bit and so on, right? I remember one of a friend we have in common, Theis, I went to some kind of pitch with him, and I said something at the pitch, like that was true, but a little bit negative about whatever we were selling. And he came to me after, Heini, what the hell are you doing? I said, but it's true. It is like that. Yes, but it's not for you to say that. And it's good point. I had to be yeah, there's also this on the other side, which isn't that good. Yeah, that's fine, but you shouldn't say it. And, maybe he had a point. He was a better deal maker than me, at the time, at least.
Yeah. I think both you and I have this thing where, we want to be right. So we want to make sure that we show people that we can kind of see things from all sides and have all the perspectives and so on. And sometimes when you're selling, that's not what you need to do, right? You need to build all the positive things. And then it's for them to find the no and the negative and maybe this makes it not work. It's not your job in that situation to shed light on it from all sides. But I think naturally the way that we think, that we often get into that position.
It's almost like a scientific background.
Yeah. So we have to actively work on that part, right?
Yeah. And I feel at least I've gotten better at it for sure. Okay, we'll get to the scores in a second. So, third role, builder. A builder can build whatever we are building or make sure it's being built. This role is often seen as a technical co-founder in a traditional tech startup. Either they build themselves or lead whatever teams is needed to build. The key here, and this is something I stress, the key is really the ability to release, actually get stuff out there. And I'm putting that in there because that's often where people fail. There are a lot of builders, but can they actually release? Do they have the kahunas to actually release? So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, obviously, I think we're both very strong on that one. Traditionally, in our partnership, I've been the one kind of owning this role, right? I feel very, very strong on that. One of the interesting parts to talk about there is so are you then supposed to be an engineer? Because, not famously, but I am not an engineer, right? And I don't do the coding myself. but I have apparently an innate talent to get engineers to build the thing that we need to do. I have a way to see it. I have a way to make it happen, and I have a sufficient willingness to put things out there, right? And I think that's often some things when you say like, oh, we need a builder on the founding team. Often you go down on the engineering path, and that
Yeah.
can be great. But what you sometimes then lack is that push to actually get it out there. Because
Yeah.
when you have the actual builder on the team, the person that actually puts together, in our case with software, the zeros and ones together, oftentimes you will then not have a sufficient push to get it out there. There will be a bit too tight of connection to it. There'll be sometimes a bit too much pride,
Looking
sometimes
for
the tendency
perfection.
to over engineer. Yeah, all these things. And that's actually, I think, the advantage you have sometimes when you have the builder founder who's not an engineer, that you will have the right level of, let's say, detachment to it. Also, sometimes that you're willing to change direction, right? You're not so into like you're fine with letting something go, and let's say, hey, we need to rebuild this, or that idea we had that, yes, we spent time on, turned out to be the wrong one. We need to change direction. When you're not the one who've sat there and spent all those hours building it, you're more ready to make those tough decisions. And I think so yes, you need a builder. Sometimes you don't need the engineer.
No. So I think this is a really important point, and I know that we very much agree on this. But I also pick my words carefully, not just build, but make sure it's being built. It's about making sure it's being
Mm,
built, whether you build it or not. In some cases, that is the
mhm.
case. In some cases, it's not. But
Yeah,
the choice that
yeah.
you're putting out there, Thais, is it a product person or is it an engineer? So if there were two divisions, I personally always opt for the product person. The product person needs to have a deep technical understanding. And I don't want to degrade any engineering part of anything, but really understanding what to build is, I'm not going to say the hardest part, but that's where the decisions need to be made. And I think that's important. And going into a world that we're going into now, I think the product role becomes more and more important.
Yeah, yeah. And I think if I can just like look at your framework here, I think this is where, and toot my own horn a bit, sorry. I think it can be a really a massive strength if you have a person on the team that can make the link between being the builder and the idea person, because you need creativity in that, and you need the link to the big vision and the like big idea of like, where are we going. If you have a person that can combine those two things and at least draw things in from the idea level and from the like big vision and the drive to create something, that's really strong. And that's, I think that's where the partnership between you and I sometimes becomes really, really strong. That I have this ability to tap into that, to see the big vision, to get the big idea on the idea level, not on the execution level, and then see how we can do that. And I think that's where
It's like
you
a
and I
translator, right?
complement each other really well. Yes, yes.
Sort of translate it into engineering speak so the engineers can actually build it. And you definitely need those two. Okay, cool. So we have the final role here, operator. An operator runs the business, make sure invoices are sent, bills are being paid, everyone gets their salary on time. A startup is a business. You need someone to run that business or it will fail. And this might sound like, oh yeah, that's a little boring. Well, maybe it is, but you definitely need it, right? And for me and Thais, I mean, we could both do the basics here, probably, right? Not that we necessarily enjoyed it very much.
True. I would again look a bit at your framework, and I think one of the things that I would be missing here in the framework, and where I might want to put it into the operator, is I think a really, really important part of a founding team is that they are able to build a team.
Yeah,
That they have the qualities that it takes to build a team, and that's a few things. There's some charisma there. There's some energy. There's the ability to create energy around the idea and attract people. That's typically on the idea person to do that, right? And that's where that will naturally come. But there's also a lot of like operating skills in that. How do you make sure you hire the right people? How do you, if you have some people to choose from, how do you set a team? And how do you make that team work? How do you make them execute on the right things? This is super, super important. quite early on in the journey of the company. And I think this is where you and I have huge strengths, and also where I was able to quite a few times build teams that were really, really strong and had these things. So yeah, I think both you and I are a bit weak on the operating. Like, none of us are naturally attracted to the paying bills and structure and like those types of the org. But I think we're both very good at finding the people and attracting the people that are able to do these things.
And this is also a role that creates balance, meaning you want the idea person to be a little bit unrealistic, and then the operator come in and add realism, right? It means that, look, if we have to pay this $10,000 or invoice $10,000, it is $10,000. It doesn't matter if the idea person it should be 100,000. Well, we agreed on a 10, so it is 10. So there's a balancing thing
For
there
sure
that we might want to add to this role.
Yeah, you definitely want that dynamic, right? You typically have the idea, and the deal person will be the one, or will be the ones that are kind of pulling things up and like making them, blowing them up, making them amazing.
Yeah.
And then you have the builder and the operator being the realistic and, sometimes more negative people. And you need that dynamic. And sometimes again, putting it back to you and I, sometimes that's been the dynamic between you and I, right? Where you've been going out there pushing things, and I've had to say, hey, listen, this also needs to be built, or, we don't have time for that, or we don't have the resources for that. But the thing is, you need that dynamism, like you need that energy in the team. You can't just have 2, 3, 4 people that are all going out there and pushing things, and not having any connection to the ground.
No, it can't all just be Hail Marys and then fingers crossed.
No. And also, you can't just that's also the thing. Like, if you have a team of 2 deeply realistic people that are just like, no, we have to be careful and so on, you're never going to get anywhere, right? So you need that part, and sometimes, and you also need it sometimes within the one person, that you need to have that ability to both go up there on the high level and be really energetic and push for things, while at the same time you fundamentally understand what is possible.
Very cool. I think this already, look, in the last segment, we're going to talk about also feedback on this, but I think we're already gathering something here that we can put into the framework and add to these 4 roles. But let me just give you, again, idea person, deal maker, builder, and operator. Now let's talk about the scoring systems. And there are sort of 2 sides to this. We score the co-founders, and the output of that is going to be the actual score for the startup. In a perfect startup, which all startups are perfect, obviously, they will score 100 points on each of these 4 roles. In reality, that's a little bit harder to do. And so let me explain how it works. Since we think that, like, on average, every person can sort of have 2 of these roles, we give every co-founder 200 points that they can put on here. So that's the basic idea. If you and I were a perfect composition for this, Theis, you would have 2 roles, give them 100 each. I would have 2 other roles, 100 each. 100 points on everyone, perfect bloody team. So that's the basic idea. Again, in reality, probably a little bit different. But this is where we're going to go in and test the system. So Theis and I, we co-founded Vivino 14 years ago. And we've been a very successful founding team. But that doesn't mean there weren't gaps here and there. And let's see how the system sort of, if it aligns with that. So what I've done is, I've done a 3-step process just to make it a little bit easier. And we're starting with the first one. So it is find the top 2 roles for each co-founder. So, and we start with number 1, Theis. Let's start with you. Where would you get and this is just, but this is binary. What's your number 1 role?
My number 1 role, I think, is the builder.
So I'm really doing hardcore multitasking here, as I am actually building a spreadsheet as we speak here. So this is exciting. Okay, let's stay with you. And again, we'll get to fine tuning it, but we really wanted to say, what is your number 2? What's your second best here?
Yeah, this is a good question. In my book, it depends a bit on how you define these 4 words, right, Heine? But I'm a bit split between idea and operator. I would put the deal at the bottom, But also, if I had like points to assign, I would split some points between idea and operator, right? So yeah, so I'm a bit split. What do you think, Heine?
I agree with you, but I think we should go idea. But then we'll split the points later. But I think for if we're going to stack rank them, agree. Let's put the deal at the bottom, and then 2 and 3 are the hard ones. But I would go for idea for this one.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It depends a bit on how you define that operator, but I definitely also find the idea level very very high on the list.
Okay, so same thing for me. And the easy one is probably the idea, right? Let's start with that. So number one is probably the idea person, right? And
I
then
agree
the
on that.
question, yes. And then the question comes deal maker or builder. Again, we're going to be able to split this later. So, but let's ask you first. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. Just like with me, I would be a bit split. I actually think you are an extremely skilled builder as well, and I would probably put that one as number 2 for you. But I'm super curious as to how you see it.
Look, I end this podcast every time with now stop listening and go build something, right? So when you say that, I obviously identify with that and say thank you very much. So I probably agree, and we'll get to the points in a second, but or look fine tuning in a second. But there's no doubt about Theis. We can talk about us saying, hey, um, we might not be like natural salespeople and so on, and we're not. At the same time, we've been very, very successful at raising money, which is part of this big role. But the question is, and this could be true, is that our strength in building led to the deal making. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Meaning we're just so good at building that it was easier to raise the money in the end.
Yeah, and sometimes, I think part of the story with Vivino, sometimes when I've talked to people about it, they've been surprised at how hard fundraising was for us, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes I can see that, and I remember thinking about it during the Vivino journey, where I was like, why is this so hard? Like we have such a good thing, and we have such a hard time closing these deals. And the whole story around how we really struggle to raise money in the US and raise money in Europe. I think part of that has been that stage where like we were just not strong enough in closing those deals in the environment that was there in the US, where you did have to be a bit more brass and like just get out there. But that said, like you say, and it's not just that deal role is not just fundraising, right? It's also making connections and like getting the network to do the things you need to do. And I think you are strong there. I think you are good at finding people that can help us, and you're also good at seeing those connections and working the network
and nurture those things. Yeah, that is important.
Yeah. And then I think you and I also color it a bit by the fact that we are working together, right? So when I'm the really strong
you step away
builder,
and step in and out. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, right. That leaves you room to then spend time on the deal making. So and vice versa. So I think from that perspective, putting you as stack ranking deal maker or as number 2 makes sense in our setup. But if you were partnered with someone else than me, I think you sometimes naturally gravitate towards the builder. I think you really like that.
Okay. Let's do that. Oh, I love it. Let's put it as build, because that's it. At least also when we started, that might have been the most natural thing, right? But I think you're pointing out a really important thing with this framework here that you can learn from it is, look, this is now your role. In some cases, lean in and lean out, right? So, okay, Theis might just be marginally better than me at this, but he's going to lean in. I'm going to lean out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it could also be used for that. I think that's a really important point. Okay, let's go to step number 2 here. It's not that it's this simple. I took this into 2 steps just to make it easier. So, okay, what are the 2 things? And then you fine tune it. So now we've added 100 points to these 2 roles. And for you Theis, it was builder and idea person. Now let's see. We have 2 other roles, operator, deal maker. we need the total still to be 200. What do we do here? Because you said we can start with builder. I mean, do you want to keep that at 100 or do you want to take that down to 90 or something just to give a little buffer? What's your thing?
I want to keep 100 at builder, but
Yeah.
I want to split the other 100 I have.
Yeah. So your current is idea person 100. You can take some of that to deal maker and operator.
Yeah. I guess I would then put it under the operator, but maybe not in the clear definition that you have here, but more in the kind of how do you make things work just kind of outside of the founding team as well, right? How do you build a team? How do you
We need to add that to the description.
how do you outsource things to other people and so on, right? I think I've shown strength there, and I think there should be points there.
Well, how much are we going to do here?
I don't know. Let's put. Yeah, that's a good question. Do you want to put 70 on idea and then 20 on operator and 10 on deal? Yeah.
I definitely wanted to insist that there were at least 10 on there too. But at the same time, I now feel maybe that your operator is a little low, honestly. Because I mean, 20 on operator says, look, you can do it, but he's not good at it. And you might want to take that up.
Yeah. Maybe we take 10 from builder and put it on operator.
30. Yeah, 30. Okay, cool. So now we're still at 200 for you. We have idea person at 70. We have deal maker at 10. We have builder at 90, and we have operator at 30. I think that makes sense, right?
For sure.
Sure. Good. Perfect. So next is me. Before we get to the actual startup, like what does it lead to in the end? I mean, idea person 100. Maybe we should just leave that there for now. What do you think?
I think you want to take it. Yeah. Use it as a buffer because if 100 is the best person in the world, we know
Elon's probably
think about other people that. Yeah, there are some.
Let's leave it as a buffer. We'll take it down. Let's not go crazy.
Yeah.
So let's look at the other one first. We have builder at 100, then we have operator and deal maker, and we talked about deal maker at least deserving quite a lot with the success we had. And the question is, I mean, what do you think? Where should you put all the way up to 40 and then figure out where we split the rest?
You try it out. You put your points out there the way you want it, Heine.
Okay,
you're the boss here on this one. On this column, you're the boss.
God damn. Yeah. So look, I'm going to put 40 on deal maker here, which is going to put me in all kinds of trouble. But let's see where we take that from, and then we can take the builder down to. I'm still going to take builder down to 70 because I'm going to take some idea person because I'm way over now. This is really hard for the idea person to do because I've given you a budget of 200, but I want to be at 300. So what the hell do I do? But let's keep going. So I'm going to take the idea person down. You were at 70, and we both agree that I'm probably. So let's take the idea person down to 80, and then I have a operator at 10 because I do think operationally I'm sort of okay-ish too. So I'm a little bit okay. So I'm negotiating with myself for going back and forth. Like I want the operator to be at least 20 here. And then I'm still over by 10.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, so let's go.
I think you need to take the builder down 65. Then a bit.
Yeah, exactly. I have to.
What is your builder on right now?
Yeah, so I've I found a solution here. Let's go through it. So idea person 80, because it's all relative, right? We're saying you're at 70. We know you're good at that, but I want to be higher. So that's 80. Okay, here we are. Then we have the deal maker 35. And someone said, look, that's weird. Like you raised a lot of money. But our argument here is that we're not natural deal makers. And we think a lot of the building led to good deals. So that's 35. That's better than yours. Then we get to the builder and we had to fine tune here. You're at 80. I put mine at 65 now. You're at 90, sorry, 65. And then we get to the operator and it's at 20. Again, I might want it to have 25 there or 30, but it's 200. I built the system. What the hell can I say?
I mean, our ego tells us that we want to be at 100 on all of these, right?
Exactly,
so this is
which
tough
makes this really
exercise.
hard. Who the hell made this system? It's unfair.
Stupid.
So unfair. So unfair. Okay. Okay, we're here now. And this is looking really interesting because now we're getting to the big reveal here. Let's say we're happy with this, right? let's go through the both of us just to make sure we got it. First, we have Theis. 70 on idea person, 10 on deal maker, 90 on builder, and 30 on operator. Total 200, looking good. Then we have me, 80 on idea person, 35 on deal maker, 65 on builder, and 20 on operator. I mean, this feels okay to me, and I think we both agree. Now, where does this leave the startup? And I think this is good. I think this might be very representative. Let's go through it, and let's start with the biggest. I'm not going to. Yeah, no, I should just probably do the normal order. So, idea person, we're at 150. Let's talk about that a little bit. So we're definitely very high on that. And guys, when we think about our story, right? I've always said to people, we don't need ideas. We need more execution. People, oh, I have this idea for you. Look, I don't need any ideas. There's an overflow of ideas. And I always thought that was true for all startups. And it really isn't. It was true for our startup because we were strong on that. What do you think?
I think that's true. I think there's also a general point. If you make the scoring for your own team and you are very, very high on idea, you need to have really good talks between your founders, because there can be a lot of conflict in that. If you have 2 people, 3 people that are really, really strong on this idea and charisma and getting out there, making things happen, you can easily step on each other's toes. And you then need to have very clear agreements on what are we building, what are we trying to achieve here.
Why are you not listening to my ideas?
If you don't have like 100% alignment, yeah, exactly. If you don't have 100% alignment on vision and like what are we trying to do here, if you're all really strong idea people, you're going to be in trouble.
Totally. So if anything, this has been a challenge for us. That, I mean, it's a challenge. It's also a good problem that we always had more ideas than we had, time to execute on. So, okay, good. That is the first one. Clearly overrepresented on that. Second one, deal maker. And we have a score of 45, meaning we're clearly weak on this, right? And
yeah,
I think it's true. I think it's true, Theis. I think none of us is like the natural hustler here that can just push through and just go on that. Look, I'm good at it, but I'm just not all the way up there.
Yeah. And I think we are the type of team where we need that early execution that shows something, that shows the traction, we can't do things out of thin air, right?
No.
Maybe we can't do funding out of thin air. Maybe we're getting to a point maybe where we can't, because we're also being judged on past performance. This was actually, if you remember it, Heine, this was also true for Vivino. Our very first funding was based on a very, very early execution on the product, but very much based on the fact that you and I had worked together for a long time and we had kind of done it before in our previous company. And that was a huge reason for why there was investment into Vivino at that stage. It wasn't because we went into the room and just like, dazzled them with like, oh my God, these people are make an amazing
we showed them facts
and
said, this is where we
and
are.
They can really sell them. Exactly. We made all those deals based on facts and past performance, rather than the huge amazing storytelling. I think that is a fact for us, and you kind of just have to work with what you have, right? You have to build on your strength, and if you're weak on this, work on it. You can do a lot of things here. You can learn a lot of things.
We've become so much better at this too. I will say that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have, get ready for this, Theis, because I have a big thing that I've invented for this particular purpose, because I knew this. And you ready for this quote that is going to be all over the world in a very short time?
Oh my God.
If you can't fake it,
I'm ready. I'm sitting down. Oh my God. This is the world changing.
If you can't fake it, make it.
Oh my God. That's great.
You get it?
That's actually pretty good, honey. That's I'm like, it's still, my head is splattered on the back wall right now. It's amazing.
So everyone knows that if you can't make it, fake it, right? The point is we were never really good at faking it. So if you can't fake it, make it. I turned the fucking world around.
That's why.
Right?
That's
That's
why
why
you're like
I'm the best idea
150 on the
person.
idea one.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Cool. Okay, we're going to move on here. So now we get to the builder, and that is our highest score, 155, 90 from Theis and 65 from me. And not much to say there, other than look, we've in all modesty, have built the best product in the category, right? So yeah, we're good at that.
We're good at that. It's what we naturally, I think it's what I naturally gravitate towards. I think
Yeah,
it's also, you really, really enjoy it. You get a lot of energy from it. We've done it not just once with Vivino, but also in our previous setup. Building, and especially building something in a consumer space where it's so hard, there's so much competition, it's so hard to get traction, it's so hard to find a product market fit that actually works. And we've done that. We've shown that we can do it several times. So yeah, I think this is where this is honestly where we shine.
So I'm not going to spend more time on that. It is what it is. But we're all different. That's why we have this framework. So the last one, operator. And we score a 50, so we're only halfway there. Theis at a 30 and me at a 20. And I think this is reasonably accurate, right? I would say with the operator, I'm not saying it's okay to score low. The worst thing you can have is like very, very low score on that. Like if you combined have a 10 or something, then you need to be really careful. With a score of 50, you can say, look, we're not great at this, but we'll get shit done, right? So I would just be very, very careful with a very low score.
Yeah, and I think it's the one part of your framework here where this is one of the things where you can kind of outsource it outside of the founding team. You can get, it's easier to get help on this one than the other ones.
100%. So this is a really good point. We'll get to that in a second. Looking at this, Theis, do you think this is a realistic picture of what we are and what we were and so on?
Yeah, I think we've put in some scores. We can always move around 5 or 10 points somewhere. And as you say, it's also a journey, right? You learn.
Yeah, exactly.
You get better at things. You discover maybe that you're, like I said, I didn't know what I was capable of doing within like team building and that part of operating. I found an immense joy in that, and I found that, hey, this is actually super, super fun, and I really enjoy doing that. I didn't know that beforehand, and from day one I would have scored myself very, very low on that. But it turned out actually, hey, I had some talent there that you discover through the journey, right? And you learn.
And you leaned in because I wasn't there, right?
Yes, I had to lean in, right? You just escaped to San Francisco, left me with all the mess in Copenhagen, and I had to pick up the pieces, right? That's what you did.
That's what I did. We are back, and the first thing I want to say about the system, as we're going to dig into it now and say how can we improve it and so on, is that the idea here is that you could use it with 3 founders, with 4 founders. You can also use it as solo founder and just put your points in there and say, look, I'm good at this, I'm not so good at this, this is where I need help, and so on. But Theis, we've touched on it a little bit. If you look at the roles, what is missing? And I think one thing we did say was that in the operator role, put some more, should we say, leadership skills, team building skills in that role. Was that your thinking?
Yes, I think that's an essential part that's missing. And obviously, when you are just a founding team and it's just you people working on a thing, and you don't have any employees or money to have employees, obviously that's not important. But if you are just slightly successful, that becomes a massive part of going from 2-3 founding team to a 10-person team. And also that's very often where you then fail, because you attract the wrong people, you put together the wrong team, you use the money in the wrong way, and you just run out of runway, and it all messed up. So it becomes extremely important. So yeah, I think there's something missing in the framework that could be put under the operator role, or like should be a very important part there, that you need a skill set within building a team, attracting a team, making sure to get the most out of the team, being willing to kind of, put people out there, outsource, so to speak, the jobs to other people than yourself. That's super important.
And what you could say here, Theis, is that the idea person will get a lot of the visionary leadership. But what you're looking for and we're looking for in the operator is like day-to-day leadership, like practical leadership. And you do need both. Visionary leadership will take you to a certain degree, but you need day-to-day leadership too, right?
Yeah, for sure.
if I want to add one more thing on missing or not missing is that whereas the idea person, we'll get to the naming here. We might want to change that too. But whereas the idea person, it's being unrealistic. It sounds such like a negative word, but thinking really big is the idea person's job. You will need the operator to take things down and say, look, this is great, but let's be not super realistic, but somewhat realistic. That's also their role.
Yeah, you need someone to prioritize, right? To say, that's great. That's where we want to be in 5 years. What do we do today? What do we build tomorrow? You need that kind of bridging between the massive vision and the, okay, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Where do we want to be at 9 tomorrow morning? So you need that combination.
Okay, so the next thing I want to touch briefly on this is actually the names. And we're going to go through them once again: idea person, deal maker, builder, operator. I feel pretty good about most of them. Some of them I'm a little bit more, I think operator's great. I think builder's great. And then I'm okay with deal maker, but less sure about idea person.
Yeah, we come back to the fact that you're a bit weak on the deal side. You don't have that innate marketing skills. You haven't found that's the what's it called, the hustler, hipster, hacker framework, right? Which is another famous framework for how to build a team. Clearly, there was better marketing around that. So you need, if nothing else, you need some kind of super nice acronym for this.
The acronym is a challenge here, Theis. Yeah. I mean, ITBO is not great.
No, Bido. Yeah.
Well, let's stay with the names before we get to the acronyms. Then we can massage it later. Idea person and deal maker. Let's take idea person. Is visionary leader better, or what do you think?
I don't know. I guess the weakness with the idea person is that it takes it does down become very bit, right? Like airy, right? It becomes yeah. Anyways, I think I don't know, Heine. I think you should workshop these words and just find the right ones. The important thing is that you kind of understand what is underneath it when you start scoring yourself.
So, but Theis, that is an ask for everyone listening or watching this, that especially an idea person and deal maker, we need some ideas. It's incredible, Theis, we scored so high on idea and we can't come up with a good idea for this. But anyway, in the comments, guys, please put ideas for idea person and especially deal maker, so we could brainstorm a little. So the next thing I want to talk about on the framework, Theis, is, are certain roles harder to find? And we've touched on it already, and I think we have ideas about that. But certain things you need, and as a founding team, other things you might be the first hire. And I think we talked about operator maybe being a little bit easier. It doesn't make it easier job to do, but might be easier to find. What do you think?
It might be easier to find, but it's also the part where, for all of these things, for any person on a founding team, they need to be into the startup mentality, right? There's a whole framework there of like, how do you run a startup? Like, what is it? What should you be ready for? What kind of commitment? How do you work? How do you do things? And I think that's where on the operator, that can often be that it can be easy to find, but does that person then have the right mindset? Do they have the right risk profile for this, right? Because you need people on a founding team. You need people with a very, very high risk willingness, and typically those people are then, often it's just people that are not very good at the very structured part, and so you often have that conflict, I think.
So this, I think you're mentioning a key thing here. Whereas idea persons and builders will gravitate towards startups, the deal makers and the operators might not. So you could say, well, they're easier to find, but you want a deal maker that is going to work with a startup and not go to Salesforce or some big company where they will pay them massively to do this job. And that might be the challenge here, is that yes, there are lots of deal makers out there. Yes, there are a lot of operators, but do they want to build this with you or not? Where the idea person and builders really do.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on, I think probably the hardest part about this team is that once you've done your scoring and you realize that you're really low, what do you do about it? How do you expand that? If you're a single founder and you're looking for a co-founder, if you're two people and you realize you have a huge weakness, how do you find and attract that third or fourth person? and that's just so hard. I don't think there's a simple answer to it. You have to use your network. You have to look at the people you already know, and all these things. But it's so hard to work around these weaknesses and attract those people.
Yeah, and there are natural personality clashes between these things, right? I mean, the idea person and the operator will naturally clash. And basically, the idea of all of this is that they clash because the operator will put structure on the idea person. The idea person definitely doesn't want that.
Yeah, and I think that's where, if we get into, if I should start tearing your framework apart, I think this is I think this is one of the problems with this, is that even if you are in a situation where, we score very high on all these 4 fronts with the 2, 3, or even 4 people that we score very high on this, so we're solid. To which the answer is absolutely not.
Because you can't make it work.
You can score very high on this because you can't make it work. If you don't have the chemistry in the team, you're going to get nowhere. There's also another, so that's a very important part, right? How do these parts work together? There's also another thing that I think maybe is a bit missing here, because this is very focused on skills and personality. There's also an element of past experience and like founder market fit. Do you have people that actually know anything about the things that they're trying to build? You and I famously built a wine app without knowing anything about wine, but in other areas, this is simply not possible. Like, it's not possible to go into very deep tech areas without knowing things about it, or to go into a lot of B2B areas without knowing something about that industry that you're trying to go into. So is there a founder market fit? And is there a founder fit in terms of chemistry? Those things need to be there. And even if you score very high on this framework, you still need to really look at that. Both, it doesn't solve that problem. So you have to be very aware of that.
I think that's key, yeah, and especially the founder market fit. The other thing on this, so I think this framework, you have to know what it is. So it does that, but not the other thing. I think that's really an important point. Mm-hmm. The other thing, which I think when we think about this and talk about this, I also realize that you might not want people to be extreme some either. It's like, he's the best operator in the world, and then the best idea person. Now they just can't meet, right? They just cannot meet. So you want those soft skills and don't score too high on anything.
Yeah, plus in these early stages, you want actually pushback on all 4 areas. Like, you want to be able to have a really good discussion and constructive debate around, like, are we building the right things? Is this the right idea? Do we have the right vision? Or is this approach to building the product the right one? Or do we need to stop now and go for this and so on? Like, you need these discussions. So if you just have one that's like 100 on one and the other is 100 on another thing, and they have no overlap, that's also a problem. Yeah, they'll never meet and they'll never be able to push and strengthen each other. So you need some overlap there. And then you just need egos that are willing to step back and kind of, like you said, lean in, lean out.
Yeah, and this is quite interesting with the two of us, because I always felt like the things that you're good at and that I'm good at, you're marginally better, and I'm marginally better in other things, right? Which means we're both conscious enough to know that, hey, Theis is better at this, but he's also going to challenge me on it, right? Which is a really good balance, yes. I think, actually.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And, we can see that in our... No, and you can see that in our stack ranking, right? Both of us have idea and builder as 1 and 2, but we have them swapped, right? So we're both really strong on both things, but we're also very aware to let the other person lead on one of them. And to have that very clear kind of contract between you guys is so important.
Okay, Theis, this has been fantastic. I'm excited to see how people receive this, and we're really doing this. I can build something in a box and then put it out, but I wanted to do this differently and get this out there and see what people say, maybe transform it, change it a little bit, and see what kind of feedback. So all comments, both on the entire framework, the naming conventions, all that, we really want to hear about that. And then we're going to get to the question we ask every week, Theis. So what are you obsessed by right now?
Obsessed or passionate about?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. These days, I'm really looking into all things space. This is, it's a passion of both you and I. but there's just so much going on. And yesterday there was a Chinese rocket that suddenly got out of control. It was supposed to be a static engine test where basically you hold the things in place, right? You hold the thing in place and you fire the engine. It's not supposed to go anywhere, but you're supposed to see the engine going well. Now this one got loose, which is not what you want in a static engine test.
Because really, then it wasn't a static engine test; it was a dynamic engine test.
It was much more of a dynamic test. Yeah. So the idea person got the better of the builder there. But so it's just an area that I'm endlessly fascinated by and can spend so much time kind of digging into. So yeah, that is super fascinating and something that I read a lot about and kind of follow along.
And it could well be one of them. I mean, we have a big AI boom and so on, but space has been like, I would say, a slower starter, but it could be like a massive boom coming up there, right?
No, for sure. It's so much more accessible now. Getting stuff into space is so much cheaper now, and it's getting cheaper and cheaper, which just facilitates completely new business ideas that are super fascinating.
Cool. And I know you're going to ask me the same question. I'm just going to.
And how about you, Heini? What are you obsessed by these days?
Yeah, so I am a little bit obsessed by we're getting into July, would naturally things slow down a little bit. And what I'm really obsessed by is that getting to that slowdown to actually think about this podcast and figure out, because this is going to be the last episode for a few weeks. We're going to be back in August, and really think about, gather all the learnings that we've had in now 19 episodes, and so figure out how do we come back in August. I have a pretty good idea. We've talked about it too, that we're going to change things a little bit, but I'm incredibly excited about that and structuring that and see, not just doing 19 episodes, but doing hundreds of episodes of this and actually planning all the way to Christmas. So I'm being pretty ambitious on this podcast here. Yeah. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing, and it's a lot of fun to play around with the format and kind of see what works, what's interesting to people. Building exactly, and kind of iterating. What do people actually want, right? That's the fundamental question for the builder. What do people want?
Okay, cool. We've come to the end. So I will say for this one, it's especially important for you to subscribe and follow, because we're taking a little break and you need a real reminder when we're coming back. So make sure you do that. And also, because we talked about a specific framework here, like putting in comments is incredibly important, because we want to get back to this at a later point. Is okay, we've changed a little bit. Here's where we are now, or at least touch on it. So the plan is to be back on August 8th. So, and for all of you on YouTube, please make sure you check out Raw Startup, and you'll find a lot of videos about how to build a startup. Thank you very much for coming on, Theis. This has been Founders Weekly. Now stop listening and go build something.